Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to be our guest. It's that time again, the last time, really, for this set, and this might be the last time you see me for another 3 months as I go back into my cave. We're doing draft set review, and specifically wrapping it up today with our 6+ ink ratings. If you haven't caught on by now, we've been doing ratings, draft reviews for Archazia's Island draft, from 1 ink, 2 ink, 3 ink, 4 ink, 5 ink, and now we're wrapping up with 6 to 10. Is 10 the highest? 6+ ink, all in one video for you. Ultimately, we've got, what did we say, 32 cards, 31 cards today, something like that, to go over. So I'm excited to wrap things up. Hopefully you've had a great time. Let us know in the comments how you felt about this series, if you'd enjoyed it. But most importantly of all, we have a special guest. And I know that guy. It's Santa. I know him.
Is he coming
Benny,
in soon?
how's it going? Who's this
Doing
amazing guy we've got coming for us?
Yeah, who is he? Like, I haven't seen him yet. It's just me sitting here.
Last time I checked, right? No, Benny, it's so good to see you. Like, I haven't seen you every week for the last month and a half. I don't know how long we've been doing that for, but welcome. For anyone that hopefully everyone out there knows you, but for anyone that doesn't, tell them who you are, where you're from, and maybe why the heck you want to talk about draft here today.
All right. I am Benny. Most people know me as Overexerted Benny. I am from the Overexerted podcast. Started nearly 2 years ago. Holy. Yeah, I guess we're going to have an anniversary episode coming up that you will get to be a part of now.
I'll be like, it's our anniversary.
Yeah, so we started off before the game was released, and it was a little bit of everything. And really, I guess the episodes just kind of keep changing on what they're about all the time. We've had episodes where we talked about drafts, episodes where we've talked about previous sets and ranked those and everything like that. So yeah, I am just a guy who loves Disney, who loves Lorcana, who has strong opinions on certain Disney movies that people do not like or agree with.
Okay.
Tangled is better than Frozen. I'm just going to say it.
No, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that.
There we go.
Tangled is fantastic, man.
It is one of the best. I'll say one of the best of the newer ones. I will not say one of the best overall. Yeah. As you can see me drinking out of my obviously the best
the best movie that there is. Yeah. So Benny, I have been joining Benny for how many weeks are we on now? Like 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I've been helping Benny co-host the Overexerted podcast. If we want to give it that, I said no titles, no need for it. I got no ego in the game. Just happy to be around. But if you're not checking it out, make sure you're checking out weekly. You're usually dropping it on Wednesdays. Am I correct?
It's usually Wednesdays or Thursdays. Ever since we started doing video, I actually have a buddy who went to film school. I've just been handing it off to him. Nice. While I've been tackling all the other projects in my life. As you can see, I was going to say,
so many projects. So many projects. People, you don't have any idea. He keeps telling me about all these projects.
I actually drywalled part of this room and painted the whole thing. And there's like computers hanging off walls and TVs and everything. It's never a dull moment. But I will say, just please ignore the card sorter organizer mess that I have there and the 6 binders of 1,000 cards for my play sets of each set.
So Benny does things professionally. I literally have a piece of cardboard that I use to block out the overhead light glare from when I do top-down recording. So yeah, mine is a little bit more, shall we say, just kind of thrown together with duct tape. Anyways, we're not here to discuss our construction projects. Suffice to say, in the comments, in the show notes, I'll give you a link to the Overexerted podcast. And at some point, we assure you we're going to stick to a regular day and time that you'll be able to expect it.
Yes.
We're working on it. Awesome. All right. So we're here today to talk about draft. You alluded to it that you've talked about it before on the Overexerted podcast. What's like your favorite thing about draft? Before we dive into this, like what's the thing that you love about draft?
I'd probably say the randomness of it all. It's like, yes, it is. There is a lot of skill that has to go into it, but it's the fact that everybody's going in completely blind for the most part. Like
Yeah.
obviously you have cards that you're like, oh, I want to get this, I want to get that, but it's going in blind and just hoping that you get what you get and hoping your opponent doesn't get what he gets and hoping that the guy next to him doesn't get what he wants and pass it on as well.
You get
Because
what you
yeah,
get and you don't get upset.
yeah, and that's I think last draft I actually had at Tombkeeper, the guy that was sitting next to one of my buddies ended up passing him all the good cards, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh no, I'm so cooked. He's getting his own good cards, and then these other good cards that are getting passed to him." I'm like, "No."
Yep, I've seen that. I was at a draft at where was it? It was Seattle. It was DLC Seattle. I was at a draft, and literally myself and one other guy were at polar opposites of the pod,
Yeah.
and we seem to have gotten all the cards because everyone in between, we don't know what they were doing, but they were just funneling it all to the two of us. And it's like, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We will take that. Speaking of which, shout out to Mikey and Tombkeeper cards out in Mission. If for some reason, somehow, you're playing this game and you don't know about Tombkeeper out in Mission in East Fraser Valley, that's for all our Greater Vancouver brethren, check them out because they're really doing a lot to build up the community and build up the
Hmm.
space there. So shout out to you all. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk our Archazia's Island cards for limited here. So we're going to go in set order. We're going to start with Rhino Motivational Speaker. He's a 6-cost uninkable 4/7 2 lore. He is specifically an ally, which I usually don't talk to synergies that much, but allies seem to be pretty impactful in this set with a few cards. So he is an ally, and really powerful ability. Your other characters gain +2 willpower, just static. Nothing you got to do. Always and forever, your other characters get +2 willpower as long as Rhino is on the board. How are you feeling about Rhino there, Benny?
The ability is actually pretty nice. The fact that he's a 4/7, anything like not anything, but a lot of things that swing into him are gonna be taking themselves out and not
Yeah.
him. He's gaining 2 lore, and he's giving everything more willpower. That's you know, if I was ranking it out of all of the cards, but it's like out of just a 6 cost, that is a pretty decent 6 cost.
Yeah.
Being uninkable, you don't always want to see uninkables when you're doing the draft. I know that much, but you can take a couple and not be worried. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you remember Shimmering Skies Rapunzel's Tower, the location?
I
Um,
remember the location. I don't remember using it, but I
So
remember
it
it.
gave +3 willpower, and I think it had 8 itself,
Mm,
1 move cost. Anyways, I didn't draft it particularly highly. It was kind of a D plus C minus for me, but ultimately it was really annoying to deal with. It's like you basically have to deal with it because +3 willpower was huge. Now this only
yeah,
gives +2, but that's still pretty substantial. And notably, as you said, instead of running it into a location that doesn't fight back, you're having to run into a 4 strength character to remove this ability. Um,
yeah,
and with no removal to speak of in this set, if they just hold it back and just take advantage of that extra 2 willpower, if they've got a wide board and can afford to do so, there's nothing you can do about it. It is a 6-cost uninkable. So, Benny, I'm not sure if you've listened to enough of the episodes to know how I feel about 6-cost uninkables, but there's like a borderline for me. So, especially if you're on the play and you're playing 1 card a turn, inking
mhm,
and playing 1 card a turn, you will only naturally get to 5 ink on the play. You will naturally get to 6 ink on the draw. So if you're on the play and you
okay,
got this in your hand, you've got to skip a turn or you got to be careful. You got to be drawing cards in order to get to 6 inks. So it's
yeah,
risky. The one thing that I'll say is this set seems to be slower. The 1 drops are garbage. So you will probably be skipping your first play as is. So it's probably less risky, but still, you might be on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and really bemoaning the fact that you've got this kind of dying in your hand at that time.
yeah,
But when you get it out, if you can get it out, it's going to be a house. So our friends here on that are listening will have already seen the rankings by now, but I don't play that for you. Just a reminder, we go A, B, C, D, and F.
okay,
Plus and minus if you so choose. You don't have to. F is just like stay far away with it, but D is I really don't want it in my deck, but if I have to have it in there, I will. It's really A, B, C where we want cards to be, or at least accept
okay.
them to be. So how are you feeling about Rhino?
Well, he's not terrible. I'd probably go with a C.
Okay.
Um, like you said, if you can get him out, like I'm thinking, if you don't take him opening hand, you draw into him. That's going to help you out if you've
Yeah.
been inking the whole time. But it's one of those. How often are you hoping to see him versus how often are you wanting to play him?
Yep.
So if you manage to run into him and you do have 5 ink on the board, you have an inkable card in your hand, and you can throw him down, you're going to be in a pretty good position.
Yeah. Yep.
But
That's
if you
fair.
draw into him and you have nothing inkable in your hand, or you have nothing to play and you're sitting there hoping for an ink so you can actually play another card, then you're kind of cooked. So
Yep.
I don't know. Part of me, I'm kind of leaning D. I'm kind of leaning C.
So again, this is a democracy. This is not a dictatorship. For me, if D means I don't want it in my deck, usually if it's uninkable, for me it's
Mhm.
automatically an F. It's not like a like set in stone rule that I will never break, but suffice to say, if I don't want it in my deck and it's uninkable, why would I want to touch anywhere close to it?
Fair
So
enough.
usually I'll skip to that. So I'll be transparent. I've got it at B, and the reason I've got it at B is
Oh.
because I am scared of the six ink uninkable. But
Mhm.
it's such a powerful effect when you can get it off, and a pretty substantial body. So the 6 cost stat line for vanilla would be like 6/6 lore. So this is
Okay.
1 pip off that. If we go down 1 willpower, up 1 strength, it's a 5/6 equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Or you could just add it up, 12 versus 11 pips of
Mhm.
stats. So it's one off the vanilla stat line, but such a huge impact. Now, this is assuming you've got characters on the board. So if you're going to pick this up, you can't be picking it up when you've got a bunch of aggro characters, right? Because they're
Yeah.
probably already been removed, right?
Yeah.
This pairs well with big bodies that are going to survive even longer, thanks to that additional 2 willpower. This pairs really well with bodyguards. Um,
Mm.
so you got to think about what it pairs well with,
Oh. Yeah.
right? Like this with if you go turn 5, what was gosh, I've already forgotten his name. There's the dog Thunderbolt.
Okay. Yeah.
Turn 5, 3/7 2 lore bodyguard. You go turn 5 Thunderbolt into turn 6 Rhino. Nothing's touching your early drops. If you've still got some on the board, if you've played towards that, right? Presumably you're
Yeah.
thinking about that when you're playing the rest of your turns. That's going to be hard to deal with. All of a sudden, it's a 3/9 bodyguard. Uh, yeah. So I think that he will warp the way that you play towards turn 6,
Yeah.
um, enough that you might fall behind a little bit early. So then, do I have characters that will control the early game? But you will absolutely be paid off for it. But it's a risk, right? So I would say a B with a kind of conditional asterisk on there for me to
Yeah.
say, you got to make sure you've got a deck that supports a card like Rhino.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you're not, then he is an F, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're playing an aggro deck where by the time you get him out, most of your characters have been challenged away, then he's a brick, right? So I think it really depends on the build that you've got up until that point. All right. So what I like to do is I like to alternate. So if you want to tell the people what's the next card we're looking at, read through it.
All right. So we are looking at Tramp, the 7 cost, inkable, 2 strength, 6 willpower, 2 lore. The ability for each character you have in play, pay 1 less to play this character, and the ability House Pickens. When you play this character, you may draw a card for each other character you have in play, then choose and discard that many cards.
All right. So on average, the average limited game, especially by the time this is going to come out, usually you have, 2 to 2, and like 2.5 is kind of the average amount of characters you have on the board, right? 2 is probably more common,
Yeah.
but 2 to 3 is kind of what you can expect to have by turn, 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there, right? Because some are going to be eliminated. You're playing some are going to be eliminated. So if you've got this in your opening hand, you should be looking to play him turn 4, right? Have like a 1, 2, 3
Yeah.
into this turn 4. But again, not many good one drops, so you're probably not going to have that. So then probably the earliest it's coming out is turn 5. So if I was paying 5 for this, 5 cost 2/6 2 lore, where I get to cycle through 2 to 3 cards, right? Not
Hmm.
draw, cycle through. How are we feeling about it at that point? What do you think?
I think in a draft, especially being able to cycle through cards is a very important thing. You can get rid of some of the cards that maybe you're stuck on that you were hoping to see later game, or you just kind of threw them in there with hopes and dreams. Because I've definitely had hopes and dreams and not come close enough to realizing that it's not going to work quick enough. So that I feel like it's good to cycle through the cards if you can get it out on turn 5. The stats, like you were saying before, with Rhino there being the 6 cost, it's usually about 12 across the stats. We're sitting at 8 here with 2 lore pips, so that's a little on the low side for what you want to see. Unless you could, somehow figure out a way to flood the board, then
I just realized I was still on mute. At 5 cost, like again, I'm assuming you get this up for 5, right? At
yeah,
5 cost, you'd usually have 10 pips of stats. You'd usually be like a 5/5 would be the vanilla stat line.
yeah,
But you're still below, right?
yeah. So you're sitting 2 below.
Yeah.
Ah,
And there's no guarantee, right? That's just the average. There's going to be
yeah,
times where this is just a 7 cost 2/6 2 lore, draw and discard nothing.
yeah. At least he's inkable,
Hmm.
like, I guess. But I,
That's
I
huge.
personally, I personally don't think I'll be playing much of this.
Yeah. So again, I feel like it. So what would you rate it as? Like for the again, kind of let's say on average, right? So let's assume on average this is going to be a 5 cost 2/6 2 lore, draw 2, discard 2. What would
Hmm.
you rate that at?
I'm probably gonna go D.
Oh, you don't even want that at 5 cost, eh? Okay.
I don't even want to see it.
We have just set the baseline that Benny is like ripping these cards apart. Okay.
I'm
Um,
sitting here with D's and C's. You're like, no, that's a healthy B. I'm like, get it
I
out of
mean,
here.
I have this. So I have this kind of interchangeably with Rhino because I think it's less powerful, but it's inkable and might come out cheaper. Specifically in my
Mhm.
quick hits video, I mentioned getting this out on 4. Again, the more every day that goes by, I'm reflecting more and more on the fact that you're really not dropping one drops pretty much at all. So this
Yeah,
is probably not getting out to turn 5, but maybe it's getting out for 4 on turn 5, and you can play a one drop, but you're probably not even playing that, right? So this is probably one I'd sandbag to later and try and build up a board of 3, 4 characters. But that's, to some degree, that's hopes and dreams as well, right? You have plenty of boards that play out like that. I've had boards that have been even wider than that in limited, but on average, it's going to be kind of 2 to 3 characters most turns, right?
okay.
And I actually, it's funny because you rated it lower, but you were speaking pretty highly about cycling through cards. I rate it higher, and yet I value cycling through cards less because
Oh,
yes, you sometimes have bombs in your deck, and especially in this set, it seems there's going to be more bombs. So maybe I feel
yeah,
better about it in this set. But in an average set, in a vacuum, in limited, now you mentioned hopes and dreams. This is assuming you're kind of shooting for something in that deck. For me, I'm drafting strictly on value. I am a
yeah,
value drafter. So the difference in value between one card and the next is usually pretty negligible. So cycling through cards doesn't really do a lot. It's something, right? Like if I have 4 cards in hand and can draw 3, having the best 4 cards out of 7 is obviously going to be an improvement, but it's not
yeah,
necessarily going to be like a game-breaking improvement most of the time. Yes, I might have one bomb in my deck and I happen to find it, but in a 40 card deck, finding one card, you're not necessarily going to get that, right? So
yeah,
I value the cycling a little bit less or the filtering a little bit less in most sets. In this set, maybe a little bit more. But just the fact that you can probably get this out on the cheap if you, again, much like Rhino, are playing towards it, are
yeah,
drafting around it. I think it's going to play out pretty well. Notably, I plan on having a really heavy top-loaded 4 and 5 drops in this set, so I don't plan on drafting many of these. So if I'm
hmm,
going to draft that way, then Tramp becomes higher. If you try to go more top end, you try to go with the 6 drops and 7 drops and all that, Tramp becomes a lot less viable because you're not really playing 2 characters in one turn very often, right? So it's going to depend on what deck you draft as well.
yeah.
All right. Wendy Darling, 7 cost, inkable, 5/7/2 lore, evasive. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may remove all characters from chosen characters. So, two things about this. One, there are five, count them, five inkable 7-drop evasives in this set. So, this is the first one of those that we're going through. So, you're going to have to kind of keep that in mind as we start coming across more. Which ones am I valuing more than others? And
Mhm.
two, basically how you'd want to play this out is you either challenge with Wendy first or second, but you challenge something that isn't going to trade with her, and then you challenge something else into a character that's going to trade so that you can then heal Wendy Darling to do it all over again. That's kind of the play pattern that's going to make the most sense for you, because with that 7 willpower, she's going to be able to do that to pretty much most bodies in the game.
Yeah.
So that's usually what you want to do. How are you feeling about Wendy?
I kind of actually like Wendy a bit more.
Yep.
Just for the fact that even if you wanted to quest her, it's 2 lore, like you said, 5/7 body. Uh, it doesn't say that it has to be on your turn, which is a big thing. So if they take
Yep.
out a different character while other stuff has damage, you're kind of set. It's getting healed
You
up
are.
anyways. So it's like,
Yep.
yeah, thanks a lot for removing the damage for me. Um, I'll be honest, I hadn't really looked a ton at this card, and I kind of like the artwork
Now
a
you're
lot.
like, ooh, I can. Yeah.
I
Right.
like the artwork is just great.
Oh, the artwork's sick.
I always have a tough time with Peter Pan cards too because my wife's like a big Peter Pan fan. So anytime I pull a foil, I'm like, even though you don't play, I put it aside for you.
Yeah, and this is gonna look sick in foil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, having evasive is
Yep.
a huge thing, especially in drafts. Like a lot of people do not take down evasives. They do not draft evasives for some reason. And when they do, you've only got a couple people that actually drafted them and a couple people that are actually going to see them when you're playing against them. So
Yep.
that's always helpful.
Specifically, only one of the other 7 drops of aces will be able to take this out without trading. There's one that is a 7/6. We'll get to. So it's going to survive pretty much every challenge in the game. And that
Yeah.
one's a super rare, by the way. So chances of seeing it are pretty insignificant, right? It'll be really interesting to see Wendy versus Wendy. It's like, I remove damage.
Oh,
I remove damage. It's like, this game is going to
oh,
take forever.
we're gonna be playing all night.
um,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's actually pretty decent though. Yeah, it's hard because like it's always harder with all these cards because they're a high cost card. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think she's a B.
B to B plus type thing, like the high end
Yeah,
of the B. Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say I'm
Um,
almost tempted to give her the A
like an A.
because
Yep.
yeah, but
Yeah, I could
yeah.
agree with it being borderline. It is one of the, so this is one of those characters that isn't inherently going to be powerful unless you use it well, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to depend on the player. It's not one of those that's just so busted that anyone could use it to great effect, right? You
Hmm.
got to think about those interactions and what you're setting your opponent up for in terms of this is a character they have to take out. Meanwhile, I've got an evasive character with damage on it, so great. I'm going to get to heal it through your challenge.
Hmm.
Um, and the fact that it's inkable. I can't stress this enough. The inkability makes things so much more playable, right? If this
Yeah.
was 7-drop on inkable, we wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. The
No.
last thing I'll mention, and our audience would have already seen this. If you watched our 5-drop video, you would have seen it. I'm usually not big on playing ramp, but especially in a slower set, there's something to be said for it. And specifically, there's a 5-drop song, 5-cost inkable song that allows you to take 2 cards from your discard, put in your inkwell. So you go from 5 to 7 real easy with that without having to invest the cards to get to 7.
Yeah.
Because cards parity, the war of attrition is so common and limited. Getting to 7 ink isn't just about getting there, it's about investing the amount of cards it takes to get there.
Hmm.
Um, so you need card draw to really get there, or if you play that. So I read that I think at a C plus. I would probably not take it nearly as high if I wasn't drafting some of these 7-drop evasives, but with it, oh, then we're talking. All right. Take away the next one, sir.
All right, the next one is 6 cost. Inkable, Calhoun, Courageous Rescuer. The 5 strength, 5 willpower, shift 4, 2 lore pip with the ability back to start positions. Whenever this character challenges another character, you may return a racer card. Oh, you may return a racer character card from your discard to your hand. I love it when they have the word character 3 times.
Um, this is like a D plus for me. So I tend to, in Ds, look at inkable cards that are pretty bad, but situationally could be good. And
Hmm.
especially a card that's understated. So again, this is below the vanilla stat line and has an effect. This is not going to happen, by the way. If anyone's thinking, I think what's there, 3 or maybe 4 racer cards in this set, and none of them are particularly good, so you're not even going to want to play them or draft them.
Hmm.
So this isn't really going to be anything but a 6 cost 5/5 2 lore vanilla. So if it was that, most of the time I would want to ink that. But if I'm top decking this and I've got 6 ink, then I'm pretty happy for a 5/5 2 lore body versus another random card. So I would have this as a high D to be treating as ink most of the time, but every once in a while it can just be a decent sized body, even if you're overpaying for it.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are Bad Aladdin from set 1.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right.
So yeah, I'd say like I'm probably never gonna see it, or not never gonna see it. Never. I guess I'll never see it because I'm never gonna put it into my
You're
deck
never gonna draft it? Fair.
unless it's like one of the final cards, and I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
Might as well take an extra inkable card.
And that's what D plus is for. That is literally give me like the last card or two in each pack. If they're inkable and they're remotely playable,
Yeah.
here we are. All right. Wreck-It Ralph, Hero's Duty. 6 cost, inkable, 3/8, 1 lore. During your turn, whenever one of your other characters is banished, this character gets +1 lore this turn. What do you
Hmm.
think?
I mean, you have to do the banishing though.
Yep. Yeah, you got to do the heavy lifting to make him a 2, maybe 3 lore character.
I'm just gonna team it up with Wendy.
Yeah, right. I mean, he would be a great 6 into 7. That might not be too bad, but yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's
But
it's
how many
got
times
a
can you do that? Because you're banishing one of your characters each time.
right, and it's like if I'm banishing my character, I'm losing 1 lore.
Yeah, I run out
Yes,
of resources real quick.
exactly. And it's like, yes, I do possibly take out one of their characters as well as one of mine, but if I don't take out one of their characters and I just banish mine to get a lore, why didn't I just quest and make them have to swing into me?
Yep. Now it's
So
still a big but.
it is
So
a big but.
what's the set? So we got effectively 11 pips. So we're one below vanilla
Hmm.
um, with this. So but I'll be frank, especially in limited, I'd much rather like a medium strength, 3 to 4 strength, and a higher willpower than it being even. I find
Hmm.
even just doesn't tend to do as much because there's just not a lot of 5 willpower, 6 willpower characters.
Yeah.
You're going to be dealing more often with 3, 4 willpower characters. So I tend to prefer a body like this, like a 4/7, a 3/8
Hmm.
is kind of where I'm at. If this costs 5, I'd be thrilled. At 6, like I would have it like down here, like the
Yeah.
the butt end of C. Like I'll play it, but I'm not necessarily all that excited about it.
And say for me, it's almost like neck and neck with Calhoun. It's like, do
Yeah,
I want to play it? And then it's like Calhoun's a D plus, but Ralph's a C minus. So
yeah, yeah.
they're
Like it could slip into D plus territory for sure. Yeah. All right, take the next
oh,
one away.
yes, the bestest boy. All right, the 6 cost uninkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, Pongo, dear old dad, with the ability, found you, you little rascal. At the start of your turn, look at the cards in your inkwell. You may play a puppy card from there for free, and it has 2 lore.
I mean, the good vibes kind of ended after you finished reading the name.
Yeah.
Um, the name's great. The art's great. It's an F for me.
Yeah. It's
It's an
uninkable.
it's an uninkable Calhoun, basically, because the
Yeah.
puppies in the set are garbage. There's one good puppy, which specifically, there's one good puppy that inks itself. So it would be an interesting combo, but not nearly powerful enough to warrant putting a 6-cost uninkable in your deck that is effectively Calhoun most of the time.
Well, the other
Um,
thing you also have to consider with that too is what are the chances that you get both of those?
Yeah, exactly. So many people have these visions in their head. You talked about, the big dreams, right?
Yeah.
Visions in their head of, oh, I'm going to do this combo. It's like you've got one of these in your deck and maybe two of the puppies. Like
Yeah.
finding those in the same game in the right order at the right time is not likely to happen. So,
No. I
sorry,
already have that
Pongo.
with I already have that with the decks that I build myself. Imagine drafting.
All right, Mirabelle Madrigal, musically talented, 6-cost inkable, 2/6, 2 lore, with shift 4 for what it's worth. Whenever this character quests, you may return a song card with cost 3 or less from your discard to your hand. What do you think?
I was actually reading this card as we were like getting everything ready, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, I love it! I love that you can bring a song card, 3 or less cost, from discard back to your hand in amber. I could do without the whole amethyst side of things. I'd prefer it in like steel or something. You know
Ooh,
that
in
that
steel?
that
Ooh.
that amber steel song. You know that one that kind of really works with that. But in
Then you remembered
draft,
you're talking about draft and not constructed.
that I'm talking about draft here.
We're talking
We're
about
talking about
draft?
draft.
Practice?
Yes, yes. And it's just I don't even know how
Yeah.
many 3 cost songs there are in this set that I'm gonna be
There's
wanting
like
to
two or three
play.
decent ones, but you're again, much like Ponko, this is never
What are
gonna
the
happen.
chances? What are
Yeah.
the chances?
And even so, you
Uh,
played a 6-cost 2/6, 2 lore to get that potential card advantage 1 out of 9 games.
mhm.
Yeah.
I'd say yeah, low D F possibly.
Yeah, so because it's inkable and 2 lore body,
Exactly.
I would put it, kind of mid D-ish
Yeah,
territory.
'cause
Because she's ink.
and she's got the 6
Yeah,
willpower,
exactly,
so
right? So there's time again. The way I look at D's is like, how do I feel like top decking this later in the game when I've already inked as much as I want to? How do I feel about having this card in hand? Not too bad. Or is it situationally good? 10% of the time it's amazing. Most of the time
yeah.
it's garbage. Those are not that. But those are kind of the two ways that I look at D's is like something that's situationally really good, most of the time garbage and thus ink, or something that if I top deck it later, the game isn't the end of the world.
Mhm.
All
Okay.
right. Go ahead.
All right, 6 cost uninkable. I keep getting all the 6 cost uninkables. There's something going on
There's
here,
a
I think.
few.
4 strength, 6 willpower, 2 lore pips, and it kind of kills me because I love this character in general, and I love everything about like the story around the character. Anyways, uh,
Yeah.
has the ability for just a little pain. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to banish chosen character with 3 cost or less.
Yeah.
And it's Hades, the fast
Hades
talker.
Fast Talker, yeah. So removal is so hard to come by in this set, so hard to come by that
Mm-hmm.
any removal you got to take seriously. However, you're paying a 6-cost uninkable for a 4/6/2 lore body, so that's well below rate.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 cost and less, like 3 cost is some decent stuff. But really the big threats are 4 and 5 cost.
Yep.
So by the time you play this, being able to damage something for 2 to remove something that might not even be on the board anymore because
Yeah.
the 1 through 3 drops have already been eliminated. Specifically, like there's no 3-drop or less evasives other than one in the entire set that you're really that threatened by, and that would be Perla. Yeah, it's just not worth it. This is an F for me.
Yeah.
I would rate it as a high F. It's better than Pongo, but like, I don't know
Yeah.
why I split hairs on F. Sometimes I'll spend like 30 seconds convincing myself of why something should be a different ranking of F. I don't know why I do that.
Yeah, I would definitely say better than Pongo. I mean, at least he's got more willpower, and at
Yeah.
least he's got the ability that actually is going to do something. Unless
Let's not
Pongo
fall
just
into the trap of spending more time on the Fs. I do it enough myself.
All right.
Teka, Elemental Terror. 10 cost Inkable, 12/12/3 lore. Shift 7 for what it's worth. During your turn, whenever an opposing character is exerted, banish them. This is an Inkable F, and I'm going to put it as far down as it can get because you're never, ever playing this.
If I see this at a draft that you're at, I'm definitely passing it to you if I'm right next to you.
And I will laugh, and I will say, oh, look at this F. Look at this F. Isn't it
Isn't
neat?
it neat? Wouldn't you think my 4-cost collection is complete?
Yeah, because I'm
Oh,
taking
wait, it
anything other
costs
than this.
10.
Gosh.
It's absolutely.
Hey, you got an Inkable 6 drop this time.
Let's go. All right. Inkable, 6 cost. Madam Mim, cheating spellcaster, 4 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore. That is one thing that I keep getting is always 2 lore, so that makes me feel good. And the
I would hope
ability,
at this cost, most of them are too low.
sometimes not. Sometimes not.
Sometimes not. Wreck It, Ralph.
Yeah. Whenever this character quest, or sorry, the ability play rough. Whenever this character quest, exert chosen opposing character.
I mean, that's a useful ability. Um, is it enough to warrant a 6 cost 4/5 2 lore? Better than some of the other 6 costs we've been looking at, but
That's true.
I don't know if that's saying much. What are your, before I give my rating, how do you feel about it?
I feel like she's a C, and the
Yeah.
reason why I feel like she's a C is at least if you have something else out on the board and they have something that you want to take out, at least you can take it out when you get her out and quest the next turn.
Yep.
Or at least it stops them from questing because they know that if you quest, you're going to be exerting the one character that they want to keep around.
Yeah.
So
It's a
definitely
bad
helps.
version of it, but specifically this ability is the for some of you going to be the closest you're going to get to removal in
Mhm.
this set, which is to say, if I can exert the character and challenge them before they get a chance to do anything, then that could be useful. Obviously, that's not great against a Wendy 5/7 2 lore evasive, that you're probably not going to be able to touch. But
Yeah.
against, the characters that you would want to otherwise challenge, again, I will say this character necessitates you building some bigger bodies around it because this ability wants you to challenge your opponent's characters.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind as you're drafting towards it. This ability isn't very good if your characters are all weenie. I agree in the like C range. How do we feel versus Wreck-It Ralph? Because I have it above, but I'm fine with either side, quite frankly.
I would say it's above just because I don't know. I almost feel like it helps Wreck-It Ralph's ability.
It does, yeah, because they
So
both want you to challenge, right?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Take on number 2. This one is at least reasonable cost. So if you want to, you can pay 6 for this and then shift the other one for 7, spending 2 entire turns for that. Teka Lava Monster, 6 cost Inkable, 5/6/2 lore, Challenger +2. What do you think?
I mean, technically, if it's challenging, it's got 13 for stats.
Yeah, so you're kind of trading one up while challenging, one down when not.
Yeah. 2 lore, as usual.
Yeah.
Phew.
In an average set, I feel pretty decent about this. The problem that I have is they put Challenger on these bigger bodies, and it's like,
Mhm.
what is this taking out? Like, other than Rhino, like, what are you worried about so much with 7 willpower? I'm more interested in controlling the 4/4s, the 5/5s,
Yeah.
So this isn't really dealing with much that your other characters or that the 5/6 alone couldn't deal with on its own. So I'd rather it was just a 5 cost 5/6/2 lore and call it a day. Give me one extra stat on the back end. But it's
Yeah.
still usable, right? For me, this is like the filler top end, right? If you're lacking for top end, it's fine. I probably want this more than Madam Mim, to be frank. Um,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Yeah. Bigger body, able to take out more. I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're kind of like doing this, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on your deck and your needs, but they're both kind of around that.
I kind of
Fine.
think it's I kind of think it's funny though, because like you said, with a challenger +2, it's like
Yeah.
you're not getting a bonus for shout out to my Final Fantasy X fans, uh, over banishing, not
Yeah.
over, you
Yep.
know.
Yep. Yeah,
I know.
if you deal 7 damage to a 4 willpower character, you get no bonus for that.
Right. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
start throwing something like that in, then it's like, hey, I'm here for it all day.
yeah. Like as we can see here so far, there's enough, higher willpower on these cards. But again, how many of these are you seeing? In
Hmm.
their deck, they probably got 3. And what are the chances you actually see it when you need that versus just getting a more efficient body out? So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, have some fun with this one. It'll take
Yes.
you a
All
while.
right. We've got a 7 cost Inkable Yzma above it all, 3 strength, 8 willpower, shift 5, evasive, with the ability back to work. Whenever another character is banished in a challenge, return that card to its player's hand. Then that player discards a card at random. 2 willpower, or sorry, 2 lore.
Is your brain melted yet? Have you processed all that?
Oh, I'm sitting there like, whenever, how much sleep did I get last night? Let's come on.
All right, so another one of the 7 cost inkable evasive characters. This one, 8 willpower, 2 lore evasive, nothing to scoff at.
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about this ability because it affects both of you, and I don't really like discarding cards at random. Um, ugh. I feel like more often than not, this is going to be so cumbersome and such a liability that I'd rather not have it. Um, it could be really strong, right? Especially if your opponent's playing off the top of their deck and you can guarantee that when they're banished in a challenge, they're gone, whereas maybe yours gets returned to your hand and you've got some chaff in hand, you get a chance to replay. I don't know. It still feels bad. I think it's probably a trap, and I think as such, it's probably one of those inkable Fs that, it's just probably not worth the risk.
Yeah. I mean, as an Emerald Steel player, I would rather see it in a couple different colors because they're going to be having no cards in their hand. They're going to be discarding it anyways. Every single card that gets returned to their hand this way.
Yeah,
But Amethyst? How
I
much?
don't
How
know.
many cards are they taking out and discarding? Come on. I guess
All
more in
right,
this set.
focus, draft.
Focus, draft. Yeah, low D
Yeah,
just for
yeah.
the ink. Like
Yeah,
other
I
than that,
mean,
she's
yeah,
an
that's
F.
fine. You know, yeah, it's I mean, I guess if you got some benefit from them discarding, but I don't think there's even anything in this set that we care about that does. So,
Yeah.
oh, look at this art, man. This art is so sick. It's so sick. Ian McDonald, you crushed it this set. You got quite a few pieces of art in this set, and you crushed it. Elsa, Ice Maker, 7 cost, uninkable, 5/5, 2 lore with shift 4. With the ability, whenever this character quests, you may exert chosen character. If you do and you have a character named Anna in play, the chosen character can't ready at the start of the next turn. There is one really good uncommon Anna in this set, but it's literally just that. There's one. And I don't even know if that's a really good. Solid enough, right? So there's an Anna that you might want to draft, but do you even see her? And if you do you get her out? So for me, I have to assume that the Anna part doesn't matter. Whenever
Hmm.
this character quests, you may exert chosen character. So now let's compare this to Madame Mim. 6 cost inkable 4/5 2 lore with that ability versus 7 cost uninkable 5/5 2 lore with this ability. And I think the answer is clear when you do that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
The fact that you need another character just makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the shift 4 could work. There is a 2 cost 2/3 common, I think it's common or uncommon Elsa in this set. So
mhm.
if you could get 3 of those somehow, then all of a sudden it's probably uncommon because it's better than a vanilla,
Yeah.
or at least written as if it were. So it's probably uncommon, but I can't remember. Um, Regardless, I
You need to
think
get that on a.
yeah, I think regardless, the fact that it's a 7 cost uninkable, even if you might be able to shift it out, is just not worth the risk. So
Yeah.
this is an F for me.
Yep.
I will put you above Hades just because the art is so sick.
The Hades gave you that extra
All
point.
right. Speaking of 7 cost uninkables, you were worried about your 6 cost uninkables. Have a 7, sir.
All right, perfect. This is my favorite one in the whole set, anyways. 7 cost, uninkable, 5 strength, 6 willpower, 3 lore. Donald Duck with the ability. I don't even want to say it because I
Well,
know I
well,
can't.
while you're doing this, I'm just going to put this over here. But go ahead, continue.
I'm just gonna say the ability that everybody knows with the opponents need 25 lore to win the game.
Yeah. If this was inkable, it'd be like probably like a C plus, B minus for me. It'd be, at least fun, if nothing else.
Hmm.
Being uninkable, yeah, not nearly impactful enough. Like, it's a really good body. It effectively gains you 5 lore, loses your opponent 5 lore, but like,
Yeah, gives you a chance to slow them down at least.
yeah. And it doesn't even really, I said effectively, it doesn't because if they go up to 21 and then this is removed, guess what? They've won.
Yeah,
So it's not quite the same. As long as this stays on the board, it's like them losing 5 lore.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a trap. Like, I wouldn't blame you for drafting it kind of in this range, but I'm personally putting it down here. Are you going to take a chance on Donald Duck?
I don't think so. I mean, I might take him if there's not that much other good stuff in the pack, just so I can say that I got a four of, and I don't have to worry about trying to pull a legendary at a later date.
Fair enough. To be fair, I kind of take out the rarity out of it, like
Yeah.
in terms of the ranking. Yeah, it's a legendary opening weekend. You're probably going to take it first, just because for the first opening weekend, even bad legendaries somehow are worth money.
Well,
But
I was just looking at the price. That's what shocked me. I was
if
like,
he
how
wants
is
to
it so
win,
high right now?
it's not. Even release weekend is probably going to be like $10 though, which is ridiculous. Here's the thing: I cannot wait. Cannot wait. Absolutely cannot wait to open this and play this in a pack rush. You need 10 more lore to win the game. Because it does not say you need 5 more lore than the regular. It
Nope.
says you need
Nope.
25 lore to win the game. Pack rush, slam that down, turn. What are we on?
Oh,
Turn 5? Whatever. Doesn't matter. I can't wait to see this come out in pack rush.
even better, you get the ramp card in there, and you get to play it
Yep.
out real nice and early.
Yep. Oh, that would be so sick. I would just like, at that point celebrate the win no matter what happens after that.
Yeah.
All right. Mufasa Among the Stars, 7 cost inkable, 5/7 2 lore, shift 5, evasive, resist +1. There is a 4 cost 4 for Mufasa, so you might shift this, but again, it's probably not going to happen. You probably shouldn't even if you could. So let's just take
Hmm.
it at face value as the 7 cost 5/7 2 lore, evasive, resist +1. How are we
Hmm.
feeling about that?
Surprisingly, I actually kind of like it because you
Oh,
have evasive.
yep.
So I'm looking like stats wise, one, you have evasive, but with the resist one, it's technically a 13 stat.
Yeah.
So 13 stat with evasive is not something to scoff at when you've got
For sure.
the 8 willpower, and then on top of that, it's not that it's I don't know, I kind of judge resist a little bit better because I'm like, it's not really that you have 8 willpower, it's that you've got -1 damage on all their attacks
Yeah.
instead.
You could absorb 2 strength for days.
Yeah. So it's just like I like that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Oh, where do I want to put him though? I'm kind of like, yeah, CB.
Yep. So I had him at C plus, but the more I
Yeah,
think about it, the more I feel like with as slow as it's going to be, he's definitely for me definitely below Wendy,
yeah.
but is in kind of this range. Probably here, but maybe there, like somewhere around here. So somewhere kind of mid to low B, I
Hmm.
think would be where I'd be happy with it. Again, I had him at C plus originally, so somewhere in there. But I think the more I think about it, the more I feel like the game's probably going to go long enough that 7 drops are going to matter more in this set than they have up until now.
Fair enough.
And it's inkable. So if you're rushing out, you can ink it. As opposed to your uninkable trend continues.
All right, 6 cost uninkable amethyst steel action, restoring the crown. Exert all opposing characters whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge this turn. Gain 2 lore. Whew, that's. I mean, the fact that all your characters get exerted, or all the opposing ones get exerted, great. But I don't see it seeing a ton of play. It's too much
Yeah.
work. Too
Too
much
much
work.
work, too much risk, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those that's going to tempt people, right?
Mm.
Huge effect. You picture yourself having 5 characters on board, and they've got 5 characters, and you just run them all into each other, and you gain 10 lore, and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's not what's going to play out. Again, the average turn, you got 2 to 3 characters on board. There's a
Mm.
good chance you can't just banish all of them. So you gain 2 to 4 lore off of this.
Yeah.
Exert 1 character because the rest are already exerted because they're already questing. So you exert their most recently played character. It's like exert 1, gain 4 for 6 cost uninkable.
This is where you need to be playing somebody who has uh oh man, I'm gonna drop the ball on this one. Someone who's playing aggro and you're playing that Scar that every time he takes something out he gets to ready, but he's not even in that color and he's not even in this set.
Yeah. So
Useless.
Sag. All right. Basil, Secret Informer, 6 cost inkable, 3/6/3 lore. Whenever this character quests, opposing damaged characters, my apologies, gain reckless during their next turn. Why they really got to be on this damaged characters thing for Emerald so much? We get it.
And it's just Emerald. It's just Emerald.
Yeah.
All the combination cards don't have these stipulations.
Yeah.
Ah. I'm not a fan personally. I mean, the 3 willpower or sorry, the 3 lore is awesome, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day he's still a 9 stat
Yeah.
that essentially if they have damaged characters, they're just going to be starting to take out your stuff.
Yeah,
So,
it's like when this character quests, your opponent is going to want to challenge it anyway. So
yeah.
it's like, okay, they gain reckless. Yeah, I was going to challenge your 3/6/3 lore character anyway.
Shit.
And
Oh
as soon as he's
no.
gone, my other damaged characters aren't reckless anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wait, no. As soon as it leaves, they lose the reckless, right?
Yeah, I think if it said like they gain reckless at the start of their turn,
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it does. I mean, regardless, it's not
but
that big of an impact. It's the nuance between those two things. Check with your judge if you go to play
yeah,
this.
I'm kind of
Check with the store owner, but or the other players around you. I'll have clarified by the time I go to draft. But regardless, the fact of the matter is it's not big enough nuance difference to really
mhm.
make that much. I still think it's playable. Like I'm not adverse to it. I feel like I would equate it to like Taka, where I'm like, if you're lacking for top end, this does a thing. It gains 3 lore on a 6 willpower body and slightly disrupts potentially your opponent's plans.
Yeah.
So what did I have it at? I had it at C.
Okay.
So somewhere in here, I think I would have it at. I think I'd have it below Mim though.
Hmm.
The more I think about it, I think Taka below Mim as well. I don't know. They're all kind of so interchangeable. What do you
You
think?
just
You feel all right with that?
yeah, I'm like DC area, so I'm like, he's kind of I'm trying to close out the game essentially. That's my only thought to it.
Yeah. Oh, you get a much better one this time.
All right, 6 cost, inkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with the Mad Hatter with the ability Unbirthday Present. Whenever a damaged character, there it is again, challenges another damaged character, you may
No,
draw a
no, just
card.
another character.
Ah,
Damaged
oh,
character challenges another character.
there you go. Whenever a damaged character challenges another character, you may draw a card.
Yeah. Specifically yours or your opponent's damaged characters.
Yeah.
So again, in a set without removal, if you can afford to, you can just leave them back, and it's like, what should go and do about it?
So that's when you wish that Basil before that we just talked about had been a 5 cost.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, Basil into this? Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
This assumes there's damaged characters, and I know you've played enough games, all of you out there, that you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I remembered plenty of times where there was damaged characters on the board. It as someone who like pays special attention to stuff like that, it happens less or is less common than you'd think. There's a lot of trades where
Mhm.
the characters are just both gone and there's no residual damage. Typically, when you want this to happen, you've got to like make it happen. I remember playing with Scar and I'm like, I got to run something into it to run something else because you're challenging to run it into something else. You're challenging with damaged characters, right?
Mhm.
Um, like you got to do some work for this to be really effective. But if you do, you could be drawing a decent amount of cards off this. And in a set with very little card draw, just as there is very little removal, that could be huge. I think the big question is, can you set yourself up in such a way that you can afford to leave this back for a turn or two? Eventually, you're going to have to quest with it, but can you afford to leave it back for a turn or two to get your value out of it before you start questing? I don't know.
Yeah, his body's decent sized, but the other 6 costs are going to be coming for him.
Yes, for sure. So I have this at the top of B, just because I like card draw and
Hmm.
there's so little of it.
Hmm.
But you might have more impact with Wendy. I still think Mad Hatter's going to probably be better most of the time, just because you can get it out on 6, and sometimes the gap between 6 and 7 ink is massive. But yeah, it's again, it is not going to just be powerful on its own. There's some
Yeah.
cards where you don't even have to think. They're just so good without you even having to do much work. This you're gonna have to do a little bit of work to make it good.
Yeah, you're going
Go,
to have to hope that your opponent likes to leave stuff damaged.
yeah, right. Or even like give them up a couple of favorable challenges before this comes down to leave some damaged characters behind.
Yeah.
Um, which probably isn't wise on its own. Hero Hamada, 7 cost inkable, 4/6/3 lore with shift 5. Your Floodbone characters that have a card under them gain evasive and ward. So specifically, you have to shift the character for it to have the evasive and ward. There is a 3 cost inkable Hero Hamada that you draw a card if you shift onto him this set, which ain't half bad, especially paired with a card that we're going to see next. Yeah, Baymax. But even so, so this might be the secret sixth 7 cost inkable evasive for what it's worth. Ward matters so very little in limited, especially in a set without removal. But like,
Yeah.
there's one card in the entire set that could target this if it didn't have ward, and probably not many people are playing it. So the ward is meaningless. Um, Evasive is not.
Yeah. Evasive and 3 lore is pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, but to do that, you got to make the shift work, which in limited.
Hmm.
So what do we feel like if he's just a 7 cost 4/6/3 lore? Where does that sit him?
Ah, I'd say he's better than Donald.
Yep. And he's
um,
inkable.
yeah, he's yeah, he's one of the better D's or the
Yeah.
mid C's.
Yeah. For now, I think I'd put him at like a high D.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you draft 3 of the heroes, then maybe you bump him up to a mid C.
Yeah, if you come into contact with enough heroes, you're set.
Yeah. Specifically that shift one, because I think there might be another one in the set. Whether there is or isn't. That's the only one I really care to shift onto. All right. This 6 cost uninkable, I think you'll be happy with.
Yeah, 6 cost, uninkable 5/5, 5 strength, 5 willpower, Baymax giant robot with universal shift 4. So you actually just pay 4 to shift this on top of any character of yours, which is kind of new, but also kind of morph. Um,
It really should have been morph, but that's fine.
yeah, it's okay. And then the ability functionality improved when you play this character. If you use shift to play him, remove all damage from him.
Yeah.
And 2 lore.
Yeah, so I normally don't like to shift characters if I'm not getting card advantage out of them, which
Hmm.
is to say characters that shift and draw me a card or, in some other way, shape, or form. Um, so which is to say I'm really hesitant to shift. This is one of those cases though, where especially if a character is about to get banished, they're on their last legs, they got 1 willpower left, and you can shift onto this and heal that and effectively have rush slash conquest. It's better than rush, right? Because you can quest when you shift it down, assuming that
Yeah.
the ink is dry on that character, right?
Hmm.
That can be pretty potent. And then you couple that with that hero, even better. But like you got a one or two drop that you decided to play, and now it's, completely overwhelmed by everything else on the board. Great, you get to pay four for Baymax and not worry about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a few situations where I'm going to be okay shifting and kind of having that bit of card disadvantage for the other advantages that I'm going to get. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I definitely think this is going to be a card that is going to be better in a draft than in other games, personally.
Sure. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, will it see play in other games? Yeah, but I mean, in draft, it's like you can throw this on anything, you're set.
Yep. So where do you feel it lands in amongst the cards we've got so far?
Low B, high C.
Yeah, I had it at C plus, but I think I probably like it in B minus. The more I think about it, B minus or C plus, again, somewhere in that range. If we get too many up here, I'll shift it down.
There we go.
I want to stay on the board. All right, Daisy Duck. We can take very little time on this, just as long as it takes to read. Daisy Duck, multi-talented pirate, 8 cost, uninkable, 6/5/3 lore with an ability. It's the hardest of Fs.
Yeah,
In fact, I've even put restoring the crown over it. You're not going to get to 8 on an uninkable. Come on, get out of here.
no.
All right, go ahead, sir.
8 cost inkable. 6 strength, 4 willpower. John Silver with the ability drawn to a fight. If an opposing character was damaged this turn, you pay 2 ink less to play this character.
Yep.
Resist +1. And I ain't gone soft. Whenever you play an action that isn't a song, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. 2 lore.
All right, so we got to make some assumptions here to I think qualify this properly. One, you're going to be able to pay 2 less for this. An
Mm-hmm.
opposing character was damaged this turn. That happens almost every turn
Yeah.
in limited. So this is a 6 cost, 6/4/2 lore, straight up, with resist +1. Uh, the last ability you could pretty much ignore. You could pretty much wipe that out. Play an action that isn't a song. You're going to have the maybe,
Yeah.
but you might have 1 or 2 in your deck. So just assume that that's not going to happen. Enjoy it when it does, but assume it's not going to happen. So how do we feel about a 6 cost, 6/4/2 lore, resist +1?
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's decent, right?
It's the resist and the fact that it's almost a 6/6. It's 1 off.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's not bad.
it's not bad, right? What did I put it at? I put him at John Silver at a C, like a mid C, maybe a little bit higher than that. Like I probably put him above Taka here,
Mhm.
but yeah, he's gonna be decent, right?
I mean, I can't help it. I love Treasure Planet. I just have to.
You're just gonna draft him as an A plus. You're like, I get to play an 8-drop John Silver that I did not get to
Oh,
play in a previous set.
finally.
All right, go ahead, sir.
6 cost inkable Pete. 5 strength, 5 willpower, shift 4. With the ability Frightful Scheme. While this character is exerted, opposing characters can't exert to sing songs, and your pirate characters gain resist +1. The second part doesn't really matter in a draft. How many pirates are you going to be playing in a set that's not all about pirates?
Well, specifically, he gets resist +1 while exerted.
That's true. That's
So
true.
the sing
Yeah.
songs, yeah, ignore.
Yeah.
But read it as while this character is exerted, your pirate characters gain resist +1, not your other. So he
Mhm.
counts himself. There's not that many pirates in the set. So for the most part, it's not going to be relevant to others. I mean, you've got John
Mhm.
Silver, so maybe if you have both, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that puts him slightly above Calhoun in that
Mhm.
it's 6 cost 5/5/2 lore with when exerted gains resist +1. Um, so you have to exert to challenge, so presumably he would gain the resist while challenging as well. So really, it's
Yeah.
just when he's readied if there was a damage dealing equipment. So actually, he's a 6 cost 5/5/2 lore with resist +1 effectively,
Mhm.
which I guess then puts him closer to John Silver. Um, so maybe he's actually up here now that I
Mhm.
think about that. Because I was just thinking on the opponent's turn, but actually, as soon as you go to challenge, you have to exert the character to challenge. So it doesn't say on the opponent's turn; it just says your pirate character's gain resist +1 while it's exerted. So Do we prefer a 5/5 resist or a 6/4 resist? Maybe I
I
prefer a
mean,
5/5 resist.
yeah, I was gonna say the tough part is he also gives John Silver an extra
Yeah.
resist, so John's gonna become a 6/6.
And there's not no other pirates, like Wendy's a pirate.
Yeah.
There's some other pirates, so yeah, cool. Pete's better
That
than I thought
day
it was.
that F tier Daisy's a pirate.
Yes, definitely that F tier Daisy going to get resist +1. Lady Tremaine, bitterly jealous. Another one that I can just kind of read and place at the same time. 6 cost uninkable, 3/3/2 lore. Exert it, it has an ability. Doesn't matter. Hot trash. Let's catch up on time. This is in here somewhere. All right. Speaking of catching up on time, would you like to read the next one
All
quickly?
right, we've got a nine cost inkable 7/7 bell shift 7 with the ability Savage. For each item card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this card using her shift ability and repurpose. Whenever this character quests, you may put up to 3 item cards from your discard on the bottom of your deck to gain 1 lore for each item card moved this way with 3 lore.
Yeah. So this is one of those inkable Fs for me. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna like even shifting her for 6 or 7, like it's just not gonna happen. Like this is what does it
You
really
need to get
matter?
that other bell out. You need to use the
Yeah.
discard to get it out.
You need to
Yada yada
draft
yada.
items that are mostly bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of mostly bad items, 6 cost inkable 5/5/2 lore beast frustrated designer. Exert, pay 2 ink, banish 2 of your items, deal 5 damage to chosen character. Removal is really hard to come by in this set. This still isn't going to work.
Removal's hard to come by. So are items.
Yes. Good items are hard to come by. All right. We've caught up on a little bit of time. You can take the next one.
All right. 7 cost inkable goofy 7 strength 6 willpower with evasive and the ability star power. Whenever this character challenges another character, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. He has 1 lore.
So, ironically enough, you got 4/5 Mulan in the first chapter that has to banish a character to gain this ability, and the 7 strength character doesn't have to banish to gain this ability.
And he's evasive.
Right? It's like, no, you're going to banish the character when you challenge with this.
Mm-hmm.
7 cost inkable, 7/6 evasive already is solid but expensive. You might get 2 to 3 lore out of this on average if you do nothing but quest with it. Even though this is the one I was talking about that can take out Wendy, I don't think it's as strong as the other two. I think it's a little slow and requires you to build up a board and not want to challenge with it. Your board, not this. Obviously, this you do want to challenge with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But still, I mean, it's still a 7/6 evasive, right? So I can't be like down here because it's inkable. So you can always ink it if you can't get up to it, right?
That's true.
Where do you feel like? I feel like it's like down here almost.
Yeah, it's like right on the cusp of being not as good as it could be sometimes, but also being really good sometimes.
Yeah. So,
but
I think
I
I'm
have noticed.
with it there.
I have noticed they love Goofy. He either gets evasive or something that boosts lore all the time.
So we've got characters that feel like they should naturally be evasive that almost never do, and then we've got Goofy, who is almost always evasive.
Right? Like, how many Peter Pans have we had that have not been evasive?
Yeah,
he can fly.
Don't understand. You've got bird characters that aren't evasive. You've got yeah. I can't remember who it's on. Why don't you just take this one?
All right. We've got an 8 cost inkable Lyle Tiberius Rourke, 6 strength, 4 willpower, explosive for the ability. Once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your ink, will deal 2 damage to each character in play. He has 3 lore.
We'll just put him down here with Bell.
Thank you. I was gonna say so many people have been talking that card up, and I'm like, why? You ink 2 cards and he's dead.
Yeah.
Or sorry, banished.
And also, how much are you inking after 8? Okay. I'll read this one out and let you talk about it because I think this is going to be an interesting one to talk about. 7 cost inkable, 5/6, 2 lore, Mulan Imperial General, shift 5. There's a 1-drop Mulan you're going to want to draft a lot of with evasive. And whenever this character challenges another character, your other characters gain this character can challenge ready characters this turn. What do you think?
Not bad, not bad. I mean, if you can shift her, you're getting her out for 5 and she has an 11 stat with evasive.
Yep.
With a bonus ability, just
A
making
pretty
it so you can just
substantial one, right?
do whatever you want to the board at this point.
Like legitimately, especially if you got another evasive character,
Hmm.
once you got this out, you basically your opponent doesn't get to play the game at that point.
Yeah.
Because there's almost no removal. And so every character that they play, you're going to be able to challenge the turn that they play it.
Yep. I'm gonna draft this and Wendy.
Like
It lives forever and you can't touch me.
this with Wendy is just disgusting, just broken.
Oh,
If you can manage to get them both out, right? Like that's a big if, but
yeah.
like, come on.
Huge. Yeah.
What did I put this as? Got to be in the A somewhere. Where did I put Mulan? Doesn't matter. It's in the A somewhere.
Is this the
Um,
first day?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's an A that you might not get to play, but it's inkable. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Inkable makes all the difference. If I don't think I'm going to get to 7, I can ink it. If I need the ink, I can ink it. If I get to 7 and can play this, or if I can shift it onto the common Mulan, we're
Yeah.
off to the races.
If I get
Whew.
this out, you're gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a bad time. Baloo, Old Iron Paws, 6 cost, uninkable, 5/4, 2 lore. Your characters with 7 strength, which is not 1 or more, can't be dealt damage.
This character should have been Bruno because we're not going to talk about him.
Yeah! All right, time for the bait. Go ahead, sir.
7 cost, inkable, action, out of order, banish chosen character. But but why?
7 cost. This is what we get for removal in the set.
I'm
This is
just. Did we have Dragonfire like 5, 6 sets ago? Like,
yeah. This is where, for the purposes of limited, they're going to need to start reprinting cards and/or doing what Magic does, which is print the same card with a different name. Magic does this all the time, where they'll print the exact same card, the exact same effect, but give it a different name to match the theme of the set. They're going to need to start doing that for limited, because if we've got to start dancing around, we can't reprint Dragonfire because it's too strong and constructed. No, it ain't. Print it for limited. Dragonfire is amazing limited. It's an A tier card. 2 costs more, even when inkable. It's just at that point, it's just not worth it. Spending your entire 7 ink to remove one character. You might have to draft this, as your 39th, 40th card just to try and get you an out sometimes. So does that make it the highest of D's? The lowest of C's? Oh, come on. All right. Tamatoa, happy as a clam. 6 cost, inkable, 4/5, 2 lore with abilities that don't matter. How do we feel about a vanilla 4/5, 2 lore for 6 cost inkable?
oh, where's the good items is the biggest question.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a couple in here that are playable, but specifically returning 2 items from your discard, you're not really going to banish them. And
Hmm.
playing items for free, I think the most expensive item I actually want to play is like 2 cost. So it's a vanilla. It's a inkable F. I mean, now it's 2 lore bodies, or what am I doing? It's in here somewhere. It's in the D's. It's less than Calhoun. It's in here somewhere.
When do we get a Tomato with the ability pick an eye, babe?
So I mentioned about allies. This card really intrigues me because it's a common. Want to read it out?
All right. 6 cost, inkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, with the ability have a little faith. If you have an ally character in play, you pay 2 less to play this character, and that's Miss Bianca. 1
Or
lore.
cost 5/5/1. There's, I think someone said like 50 something allies in this set. Now, you're not going to want to play them all, but we've hit quite a few allies over the course of this last week, since this is our last piece, that are pretty solid allies. If
Rhino.
you draft around this even a little bit, you're going to be pretty consistently able to get out a 4 cost 5/5.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a common. You're going to
yeah.
see it.
I think this is I'm usually not one for jumping through hoops. I don't
Mhm.
really want to play a bad card because it might be good in conjunction with other cards. But what's the worst that could happen? You ink this, or you top deck into a 6 cost 5/5, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But being able to put this out on curve on turn 4 is going to have a pretty big effect on the board.
Yeah.
Um, Couple this with Rhino a couple turns later. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, I'm very interested. I don't know where that places it, right? Like, I feel like at most that can be like a C plus,
Yeah.
but I'm very intrigued. I think I might look to draft like a few of these in like an ally deck. Specifically, you probably haven't looked at the other costs, but there's a 5 cost uninkable Jasmine with a pretty solid stat line, like below vanilla, but a solid stat line.
Yeah.
Actually, let's look it up here since this is our last card. Let's look it up here. Where is the Jasmine? So, 3/5/2 lore. Whenever this character quests, if you have no cards in hand, draw a card for each ally you have in play. So it's going to necessitate you emptying your hand, right? Playing
Hmm.
cards. But 2 allies in play, and this draws 2 even, I'm happy
Hmm.
with. But you can legitimately have a lot more than that. So how many allies do we have in here? We have
Oh my.
61 any enchanteds, one enchanted. So we
One.
have 60 allies. Now let's narrow it down to commons and uncommons because that's what you're going to get, right? Commons and uncommons. We got 46 common and uncommon allies. And I'm just going to quickly run through here and say, how many are you actively going to be drafting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Just there's a lot of really good allies.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you're gonna get her out for 4, and Jasmine, you could legitimately be drawing some cards. So I was like, had F for Jasmine, and then it was Stephen Gettle. I was like, dude, have you seen how many decent allies there are in here? I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think Miss Bianca with in a Jasmine Miss Bianca deck, ally deck, I am usually like the last person to draft synergies. I think I'm gonna try
Hmm.
to make it work. If I open a Jasmine, yeah. uh
Also, who's
yeah.
the Steven Gettle guy? He's just coming out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's like A tier Lorcana player. Just.
Steven has been an A tier human being. He's just now translating that energy into his
Hmm.
play. But yeah,
Yeah.
right? I joked about it. Now, of course, Blue Steel's back to being amazing, and Harlan Sweety's gonna bug me that Blue Steel was always amazing. But I bugged him. I'm like, it's because you were playing Blue Steel when Blue Steel was not particularly good. I'm like, you start playing a good deck in Purple Steel, and go figure, you start winning.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've had a long enough video for the people here. Thanks so much, Betty, for doing this for me. Tell the people where they can find you again one more time.
All right. Thanks for having me on. And I am Overexerted Benny. You can find me on the Overexerted podcast along with Heath here, my
Sorry.
co-host.
Ish.
And yeah, we usually get the episodes out every Wednesday or Thursday.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. This is the last video for this set. I'm really hoping at some point I'm going to have the capacity to do more than that. I want to do some draft gameplay, some live drafts. We'll see what the set brings. But regardless, whether I see you in a couple of weeks or I see you in 3 months, you've been beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this out with your family and friends, showing them the amazing things that they can do in Limited, showing them how to have fun in a different way in the game. You're awesome. We'll see you next time. Cheers.